Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Sit Down. I'm DJ Sixsmith. Hanging out today with Tim Weiner, Pulitzer Prize winner. Brand new Showtime docuseries coming out. The enemies, the president, justice, the FBI. How are you?
Good, man.
It's great to have you in.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a little bit about your backstory because you were an investigative journalist. Writing has obviously been a big part of your life. So what were some of the inspirations growing up to be a writer, and who were some of the guys you looked to?
Well, I'm a Watergate baby. I was 16, 17, 18 when Nixon went down. And that really shaped what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. The idea that you could get paid for kicking the government where it hurts.
Not a bad gig, right?
That appealed to me in my youth, and in a way it still does. I mean, we're at a time when the free press in America is under attack by the President of the United States. He calls us the enemy of the people. We're not.
No.
We're here to find out what's going on. And I believe you cannot run a democracy without an informed citizenry. And that's why we're here.
Yeah, and also a big part of that democracy is the responsibility of the FBI to do its job.
Well, you know, the FBI, for all its flaws, is the most powerful force, and I think the only force that is able to go up against the president when he breaks the law or bends the Constitution. Our series, Enemies, deals with the FBI as it confronts 5 presidents, beginning with Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and in the grand finale, Donald Trump.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we're all really looking forward to it. And just going back a little bit more, how did you become so interested in the relationship between the FBI and presidents?
Right. Well, let's see. About a decade ago, I had just published a book on the history of the CIA. And I got a call from a Freedom of Information Act lawyer saying, hey, after 27 years of litigation under the Freedom of Information law, I've received the FBI's intelligence files for the Hoover years and beyond. Would you like to look at them?
Yeah, definitely.
And I said, yes, I would. And out of that grew my book, Enemies, A History of the FBI. Got a call from Alex Gibney, great documentary film producer.
Yeah, incredible.
One of the best, if not the best. And he said, let's do something here. And in the spring of last year, when Trump fired FBI Director Jim Comey, the idea fell into place. We knew we were in the midst of an epic confrontation between a president and the FBI. And we go back over the course of almost 50 years to see what happens when you have a tug of war between the FBI and the President of the United States.
Yeah, it's been something that's been in our history for a long, long time. And you mentioned J. Edgar Hoover. You know, for somebody that spent so much time looking at him, how do you think of his legacy today when you think of him as a man, when you think of him as an FBI leader, when you think of him in his wiretapping?
Hoover is the creator of the modern surveillance state. Hoover used wiretaps and bugs as a political weapon to destroy his enemies, up to and including Martin Luther King. After his death and after Watergate, this country tried to bring the power of wiretapping and bugging against American citizens under the rule of law. You got to have a warrant.
Right.
And that really came into play in a very dramatic way back in 2004 when Robert Mueller, then the head of the FBI, and his immediate superior, Jim Comey, then the Deputy Attorney General, went up against President George W. Bush, who had, after 9/11, instituted a huge program of electronic surveillance of Americans without warrants. And they said to him, you have to bring this eavesdropping program under the rule of law. And if you don't, we are going to resign. And Bush backed down. Here now, Mueller is investigating the president, and his star witness is Jim Comey.
Isn't that just incredible how it all worked out like that?
It's amazing.
Now, speaking of Jim Comey, you think about his legacy and just that relationship between him and Trump. When you put that into historical perspective, what do you really focus on there?
Well, as we sit here today, the president and his lawyers are struggling to answer Robert Mueller's written questions about whether he fired Jim Comey with a corrupt intent to obstruct the investigation that the FBI was conducting into the Russia hacks. It had been a counterintelligence investigation about the attack on our election. When the president fired Jim Comey, it became a criminal investigation into the obstruction of justice. And as we speak today, the president and his lawyers are trying to figure out how to answer questions about that truthfully without admitting his intent to obstruct justice. It is a profound dilemma.
Yeah, and it's something that could change any day now, which should be interesting to see how that all shakes out. And
we're all waiting for the next tweet.
Yeah, right? Yeah, every single day. And even if you're Robert Mueller at this point, you've sunk all this time into the investigation.
Well, it's actually not been long in the history of these kind of investigations. It's only been 18 months. And he has a long way to go, I believe.
Yeah. So you think with Jeff Sessions out, do you think he'll have any issues?
Well, here's the thing, DJ. The president can't fire Mueller, okay? Under the law, he has to get somebody at the Justice Department to do it. If this guy, Mark Whitaker, the acting attorney general, tries to fire Mueller, Mueller's grand jury is going to put him in their crosshairs on an obstruction count. Ain't going to happen. And bottom line, Trump can't fire the FBI.
Do you think he honestly knows that?
Oh, you could go broke thinking about what Trump knows and does not know.
I mean, that would certainly be a guy, if you could peel back the layers and just really find out what he's thinking. You know?
Well, in a perfect world, Mueller would sit down with Trump and grill him. But the president's lawyers won't let that happen.
You don't think he'll ever sit down with Mueller?
Face to face?
Face to face.
No, the president's lawyers have forbidden it because they are afraid he would perjure himself.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy who lies
every day.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. Do you think he'll maybe answer the written questions?
Well, they kind of have to. Mm-hmm. And the question is now, how are they going to answer them truthfully?
Yeah, that's a big thing for sure. And one of the interesting things that you've written about, and I'm sure this series will dive into, is just presidents going up against the FBI. It hasn't worked out. And Trump is not exactly a man of history, as you've pointed out. So when you think about Nixon and Reagan and Clinton and Bush, how much do you think that factors into today's conversation in terms of the fact that the FBI has always found a way to win out and presidents don't?
We are still a government of laws. The president is not a king. He is a citizen too. And he gets up there, swears when he takes the oath of office to protect and defend the laws and the Constitution of the United States. If he violates his oath of office, if he breaks the law, if he bends the Constitution to the breaking point, he is subjected not only to questions that might arise in an impeachment hearing, but, and we have to keep this in mind, someday President Trump will be Citizen Trump.
Right.
And he will not be protected by the immunity granted presidents from indictment. And he will be, I predict, in a world of pain. Mm.
Yeah, that will certainly be an interesting day, that's for sure. So when the docuseries starts up on Sunday, what are some things you want people to think about when they watch the first episode?
Okay, part one deals largely with Nixon, okay? But it also deals with Trump because it's funny, a couple of the people who were around Nixon in Watergate are on Team Trump, like Roger Stone.
Yeah.
Watch out for Roger Stone.
He could be a key figure in all this.
He may be a liaison between WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, who were acting as a conduit for Russian intelligence for the release of the hacked DNC emails, and the Trump campaign. That's one entry point for Mueller, linking the Russia hack to the Trump team. Nixon believed. J. Edgar Hoover died 6 weeks before the Watergate break-in. And Nixon put a stooge in as head of the FBI, thinking he could control the FBI through this guy, L. Patrick Gray, the acting director of the FBI. It didn't work out too well. Gray destroyed evidence. Gray was indicted. And the FBI went about its business, okay? They did not bow to the pressure from Gray to shut down the investigation. And this gives us an indicator, which is true through time, that the FBI, once on the case, stays on the case.
And the FBI has stayed on the case with Trump throughout, but I'm interested to know from you, from all the slander, the firing of Comey, people think about our law intelligence differently because of what our president's saying. How much of a hit do you think the FBI and the CIA have taken during the Trump era?
The president has relentlessly attacked the FBI and Special Counsel Mueller. He did it today, 7 o'clock this morning. He's acting like a cornered man, and he's lashing out. People have to remember that the 21st century FBI is Robert Mueller's FBI. He ran it. He took office the week before 9/11, and he ran it for 12 years.
Yeah.
Okay. It ain't J. Edgar Hoover's FBI anymore. It's not an instrument of political warfare the way it was under Hoover. It's Robert Mueller's FBI. And Mueller is a man of great rectitude. Okay. He is not a hack. He will go down in history as one of the most important figures of the 21st century in America.
If you could spend 5 minutes with Robert Mueller.
Well, I have.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What was that?
2 years ago this week, in fact, I interviewed him at an international security and law enforcement conference, and we hung out afterwards. So I've spent about, 2.5 hours talking with Mueller.
What did you discover about him?
This is a guy who represents an old school of public service. Very privileged background, came out of Princeton, and signed up to join the Marines at the height of the Vietnam War. One thing about the Marines is if you're a lieutenant, as Mueller was, and you order your men up the hill, you go up the hill first. Mueller has spent his life working for the greater good of the United States, with occasional breaks to go make money at a big law firm. There are very few people like him in the government of the United States today. He's an extraordinary man, and he will not bend or break under political pressure.
Well, it seems like the perfect person then to go right after President Trump.
Funny how history works out that way.
Definitely. So you mentioned Alex Gibney before.
Right.
Just describe to me what it was like seeing your book turned into 5 hours.
Yeah, Gibney is a genius. And he's got a fantastic team at his production company, Jigsaw. And, we made 5 hours of really good television in about 9 months.
It's incredible. Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, people don't understand. That's
big time.
That's a lot of work. And the work shows. I mean, even if you think you know something about Watergate, the Iran-Contra disaster under President Reagan, the investigations of Bill Clinton that led to his impeachment in the House, the Stellar Wind case, the electronic eavesdropping conducted by President Bush after 9/11, or Donald Trump. Even if you think you know something, you are going to get your eyes opened.
It's a tough question to answer, but how do you think this all shakes out?
Oh, man. I don't have a crystal ball. And he who lives by the crystal ball ends up eating broken glass. But the likeliest outcome, I believe, are a continuing series of indictments that will hit members of Team Trump.
Do you think Don Jr. is one of those people?
I think Don Jr. has a lot to worry about.
Roger Stone, maybe?
Roger Stone has a lot to worry about. And I also think that Mueller's final report, he may issue an interim report, but his final report will be a devastating look at a lawless president. And I also think that should President Trump become Citizen Trump 2 years from now, that he will spend much of the rest of his life trying to avoid criminal indictment, trial, and possibly imprisonment. We may see a day when a team of agents with FBI emblazoned on their back go to visit Mr. Trump in one of his gilded palaces. We await that day.
Yeah, there's still a lot to this story. And last one for you. When you think about 2020 with Trump, we've seen presidents under investigation, how that's impacted their presidencies.
Right.
How much do you think Mueller can impact Trump regaining the election in 2020?
I think that his final report will paint a devastating picture. Remember that Mueller is able not simply to look at the Russia question, but to look at any criminal conduct.
Right.
And some of the nation's best investigative reporters have established that Trump Incorporated is a racket. I mean, I grew up here in New York. Mm-hmm. I've been reading about Donald Trump for decades, yeah. Okay? And we New Yorkers, we know who Donald Trump is. He's a con man. He's a grifter. He's always been a con man and a grifter. And the question is Trump Incorporated, as it is being run today, a criminal enterprise? We'll find out.
Well, Tim Weiner, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Enemies, the President, Justice, and the FBI. Showtime this Sunday. We'll see you next time here on The Sit Down.
Be there.